Hi guys, it's been a little while since we used Google Sheets, so I wanted to make a video to walk you through this idea of how to recreate the oscillating graph that you see in the predator-prey graph activity that you're doing. So if this is helpful, go ahead and watch and I'll walk you through it step by step. All right, so you are starting in the cleexchange.org website, and you should have a graph that looks like this. If you're on a screen that looks like this, click on this little button where it says click here if you can't see the whole graph, because that is going to give you a little bit more functionability in the information that you're able to get out of the graph. So when I have the graph whole screen, and I click on the graph, you'll notice that when I click on a point on the graph, it gives me some information down here on the x-axis. It gives me the predators, the prey, and the year value for any point that I'm looking at. And as I move the clicker along, it updates the information. So this is where you're going to get your 20 data points. And try in those 20 data points to capture a whole oscillation of the graph. So like maybe start where the prey numbers are really high and the predator numbers are sort of low, and get some data that shows the prey numbers going down as the predator numbers rise, and then eventually the predator numbers hitting a peak and falling because they don't have any food. And that's sort of what causes these two lines to keep intersecting with each other over and over again through the years of the graph. So once you have 20 good data points that give you that information, go ahead and make a Google Sheet. And on your Google Sheet, I'm going to get this lined up so you can see the top left-hand corner. You're going to have a predator column, a prey column, and a year column. And that is where you're going to enter your information. It'll be faster if you enter the information one column at a time. So like I'm going to go through and enter all of my predator data. So 31, 35, 43, etc. All of my prey data, 1272, 1260, 1150, etc. And then for my year value, I'm going to just put like an arbitrary number for the years. I'm not going to worry about getting each of those years to the exact decimal point. It's okay if you just put like 1 through 20 for the year value. Once you have all of that information, I did it on another sheet, so I'm going to click over there. You will have a 3-column table that looks like this. In order to turn that into a graph, you need to highlight all the data. And then I'm going to end up going off the screen a little bit here up to the Insert button in my menu, and I'm going to insert a chart. So when you insert the chart, you get this Setup and Customize bar, and then it sort of like pre-makes a chart for you. And this is not the chart we want, but I will leave it here so that you can see as we mess around with the setup options how the chart changes. So the first thing we want to do is change the chart type. I do not want a column chart. I want a chart that will give me some lines. So in the chart options, I'm going to click on a smooth line chart. Again, this is under Setup, Chart Type, Smooth Line Chart. And this data is still pretty funky. So let's check out the data range and what our axes are. Our data range looks good. The data range represents our whole data set. Our x-axis is not so good. We don't want the x-axis to be about the predators. We want the x-axis to be about the years. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. Already that's starting to look a little bit better. Our series data is half right. We want one of the series to be prey, but we want the other series to be our predators. So I'm going to go ahead and change that as well. And that's sort of all the functionality that we have in the setup menu for the chart. So let's go over to customize and see what else we can do here. Chart style doesn't really have anything that I am too concerned about at this moment. This is where you can mess around with like the border colors and the background colors and the fonts. I don't have a big opinion about any of those things, so I'm just going to keep going. Chart and axes titles is quite helpful. This is where you can change stuff like the whole chart title, for example, is not what I want it to be. I want that to be a predator versus prey graph. So I'm going to change the title there. And remember, you can also just click directly in any of these titles on the graph, and you can change the title there as well. So like for the year, I'm going to change the title over here, and you can see it like sort of senses where I am in this chart and axis title. So that's good. That looks good. Now let's go to the series, and we still have a little bit of work to do with our series. So our prey series looks good over here on the left-hand axis. I'm going to leave that like it is. The predator series we don't want on the same axis because our numbers of predators are much different than our number of prey. So I'm going to change the graph so that it has the predator number values on the right-hand axis, and that way you can sort of compare more easily between the predator and the prey. And this is where you start to get like that nice oscillation between the two populations that you could see in the other graph. You can really see like as the predator population is going up, the prey population is going down. And let's add in some point sizes. This is if you want to like change the shape that you have for your point, you can do that here too. I'm fine just leaving them as circles. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And at that point, our graph overall is looking pretty good. If you want to get into the axes titles a little bit more, maybe I could put my prey as my vertical axis title is always like the left vertical axis, and then predator as my right vertical axis and axes, excuse me. And at that point, I feel like the graph looks pretty good. So I'm going to click out of the chart editor and make this a little bit bigger so that I can really see what's going on. And at this point, you can really see like the oscillation in the two populations as they're compared to each other. It gives you a little key, tells you which line is which. You have a title, you have all the axes labeled. So this graph is looking pretty good. I hope that that was helpful. And if you have any questions, I would go backwards through the video and pause at the point where you're having trouble and give yourself a minute to mess around with the chart editor options and see if that doesn't help. All right, see you soon.